Hello and welcome to Psychedelic Variety, a portal into a wide spectrum of offerings from our local and global community.
We are the San Francisco Psychedelic Society, an evolutionary healing community empowering psychedelic culture through accessible education, integration, and connection.
This podcast and all of the offerings we create are made possible by people like you.
Grow with us in our healing community by liking, commenting on, and sharing this video, subscribing to our channel, and joining our events, which can be found on psychedelicsocietysf.org.
If you believe in the empowering work that we do and want to share support or get more deeply involved, please make an in-kind donation or become a member at our website. The links can be found in the description of this video.
Members of our organization receive discounts on events, private members gatherings, and more as time goes on.
And finally, we are excited to bring our community a high-level and accessible course on microdosing. It will take you from curious to confident with leading voices in the field James Fadiman, the Microdosing Institute of Holland, and Flow State Micro, a combined 30 years of experience to provide over 20 hours of content, 100 infographic slides, a microdosing journal, and ongoing community support through weekly Zoom calls and an online chat group on Discord.
Enjoy this podcast and evolve with us. Psychedelic Society is a 501c3 nonprofit organization. All donations are tax deductible.
Thank you.
What are we? How far are we from the first Psilocybin Cup? And is it the first?
Arguably, it's the first. I don't know if anybody else doing this work, and it officially starts the 17th, if I recall correctly, all the way through the 20th.
Yeah. All right, so that gives me a pretty real deadline for getting this out there. So appreciate the need for expediency. We'll get into like what's the Psilocybin Cup and stuff, but just how you guys doing? Reggie, Ian, how's it flowing?
I'm doing great. I'm loving life. I'm glad to be working here.
I'm doing fantastic.
You guys got a lot of press this week.
It's humbling. I'm highly appreciative, and I'm glad that the community as a whole has kind of come around and supported and uplifted this event.
Yeah, well, did you have to break through some challenges off the bat?
There's a lot of personal challenges that, procrastination, I don't know how to do video production at all. And so breaking past that, it's been the science has been a long haul just getting that right.
Absolutely. I mean, I started doing this stuff in people's, home lab spaces, essentially, and moving outside of those kind of, personal hobby spaces to actual lab spaces. So the transition has been tough. Like the legitimacy, the questioning of it has been tough.
Even nailing down the proper machine to use was tough. We started off using a gas chromatograph and backed into what we have now.
Are you doing liquid chromatography now?
Yes, sir. High performance liquid chromatography. HPLC is the acronym for it.
Cool. So I guess before we go any further down that path, what is it that you guys are doing with these high tech machines?
Go
for it.
When I first met you, I was, in these meetings I knew that I wanted to do potency testing. I was, just a person who understood cultivation. But I knew that potency testing. And so look, I found a few people. I ran into some people. Ian was one of them who understood it. And, Ian and I have been working together for about a year and a half. Piecing this thing together, first an idea, then the machinery, then the lab space. But the whole idea was to be able to measure the potency that a psilocybin mushroom produces, and answer a lot of different questions that come along with that.
Yeah.
I mean, I would say that one of the hardest things to do is to put information out there. Right now, there's so many people that are producing, their own mushrooms or their own products even, that people consuming them don't really have a whole lot of information about. Yeah. So there's a public need and a public benefit for this knowledge being out there.
Yeah. And just to piggyback on that, not only people need to know what's in the actual fruit body, but people need to be able to, I think that there's also a benefit in the public knowing what various conditions, external conditions might impact the potency levels. If I add more calcium, does it help? If I do this, that, or the third, if I use 50-50 substrate models, does it help? Or if I use just quad?
Yep. And I remember a classic is like stems or caps, which is more potent, and like how fast do things degrade? We get so many of these questions. I get a ton of these questions, and yeah, there's no real answer. I can tell you what camp I'm in.
What camp are you in?
Oh, I'm in the stems camp. Stems are more potent because I listen to the experts. You guys gave me that tip. So, but before that, I'm just kind of always happy to just fall back on, you figure it out. You tell me which is more potent.
Yeah. The reason for wanting to understand how the potency level is just because I got tired of having stupid conversations about mushrooms. I always tell the story about a person who sold another person some mushrooms, and the buyer returned the product to the seller because they said the stems were too big. And to me, it's like, if that's the way the mushroom grows, like it's messed up. But you shouldn't be a mushroom elitist based upon anecdotal information. It'd be one thing if we knew that the stems were less potent, then fine. But that, in fact, and the way our research shows, that's not the case. It's negligible, but if anything, the stems would be more potent.
And then there's even more documentation. I was recently reading a paper put out, which, if I recall correctly, was published, but doesn't really have a lot of traction yet. There's one group that says, based off of their research and their method of testing, like they say that there's a possibility, again, not statistically significant, that caps might be stronger. Mm-hmm. But it's like, what variety were you using? Did you look at different varieties? How deep did you go? And all of these are important questions we need to be able to answer because there's so much misinformation or disintegrated information. Like the work that we're doing is not integrated with the work that these other people are doing. We need to be able to do those apples to apples comparisons.
Yeah.
And that's kind of what we want to try to do, is to set that standard, because nobody has that.
That's what we're doing.
And are you, okay. So I just want to recap a little bit. So Oakland Hyphae is you guys' organization that you created together.
So Oakland Hyphae is my organization. Our organization is Hyphae Labs.
Okay. That makes sense.
Oakland Hyphae came out of this thing is a mix between, kind of a social collective / a science collective, and we still pursue that. But the business that has come about from Oakland Hyphae is going to be conducted through Hyphae Labs going forward.
Cool. Would you call yourselves a grassroots effort?
If you saw the way the thing has come about, of course, like we're the embodiment, the epitome of grassroots. He and I literally came together at community meetings. We literally were both dead broke together. We both worked our way up and clawed piece by piece with this together from the ground, stacking our little money that we've been able to earn. And we finally earned enough money to buy equipment. Yeah. Then we stack a little bit of money, and then we have enough money to buy solvents. Stack a little. Now we have lab space. And so it's not like we're coming in, with millions of dollars or even hundreds of thousands of dollars. We get it piece by piece. And now the support that the cup is, the support that we're getting from the cup is going to enable us to upgrade our equipment.
So let's talk about this kind of landmark moment for Oakland Hyphae Labs. It seems like, there's a lot of ways to get the name out and the word out about what you're doing, but making history is a pretty damn good one. So tell me about this historic moment.
So one of the big things that we've decided to do is Reggie recognized the fact that there's the Emerald Cup. There is this massive demand for people that want to know more about the things that they produce. And humanity has this really attached to idea of pride. It's like, oh, I've done a good job. I want people to know the good job I've done. And honestly, it's like, okay, well, if we can give people that opportunity to be proud of the work that they're doing and provide a deep knowledge about the thing that they're working with for not just their use, but for the people that they're giving those things out to, that's the biggest landmark thing that we can do, is really say that not only is there a grassroots demand for this knowledge, but for these products, there's a grassroots funding for it as well. I mean, our first 2 rounds of funding, we didn't ask for any support. I mean, not funding, testing. We didn't ask for any financial support. We just would do it for people
and put it out to the public. That was the exchange,
and that's it.
So, and to piggyback on what Ian is saying, it is historic in a number of ways. You know, I don't think that I've seen anything like this in Europe. I definitely haven't seen anything like this in the States. And I think we're in a unique time and uniquely positioned being here in Oakland and with COVID, where we actually don't have to worry about having an in-person component to this. We can do it all online. Yeah. And again, it came from grassroots. It came from us doing free tests, putting them out to the public, and the demand from the community was that we open it up more. And then the demand from the community says we do this. And I didn't come in saying, this is what I'm going to do. There was just overwhelming demand. So I did it, and people supported it. But another piece of history that we're engaging in beyond the event is, I mean, I don't know. I was thinking about this morning. I don't know of a scientist on the face of this earth that is going to be able to analyze such a wide range of high quality samples for this sort of thing, other than this man right here. He's going to be the only person in the world who will have access to a library like this. Okay. You know, there are a lot of people who have wild specimens. There are a lot of people who have well-connected friends, but literally the best cultivators in the world have submitted samples to the cup, and this man's going to be analyzing them.
That's a real opportunity. Yeah.
Well, I mean, I'm very humbled and thankful to be able to do it, because I'm not seeing it as, yes, I get to do amazing science. I think of it more as we generally, the cultivators, Reggie, myself, we get to be able to push into this space together. It's not necessarily, yes, we're trailblazers. No doubt about that. Right. But we're bringing with us this really large community that extends farther. It's like we're growing the rainforest back. We're reclaiming more of that farmland back from those people that are trying to turn into monocultures.
I really appreciate that.
Can I say one thing?
You may.
A unique to build on the reclaiming sort of idea that Ian's talking about. The other component beyond the actual cultivation that we're doing, or the testing of the potency that we're doing, is we have programming, 3 days of programming. And again,
this is for the cup.
For the cup, yes, online is programming.
Starting on the
17th, running through the 19th. But I'm willing to assert that this is the most diverse panel. You don't see mainstream events like what we're doing, led by POC and women nearly as strong as we're doing here. Yeah. You know, we're making sure that we marry the cultivation of the mycology world with the intellectuals, with the scientists, with the community folks, and there's an exchange of information further building that community.
Yeah, that's awesome, man. I mean, and I am excited to check out the work that you guys are doing. I think it's going to be really a lot of fun to check in on those. I'm particularly excited. You guys kind of teased me a little bit on this panel, the Decrim panel. I mean, I've been wanting to see a panel like this for a long time, partly just to see, like, is this going to be a bloodbath? Like, are these people going to get along? Like, what's the deal?
Well,
because there's so much drama.
Yeah. So, like, I hear what you're saying. Like, there's drama to it, but, like, I think letting people know, like, the people that were sat in that arena and knowing that it came out not a bloodbath is powerful.
Well, we don't know that it didn't come out of bloodbath. we don't know that you need to tune in and buy a ticket if you want to see. But what they're talking about here is a panel that I actually floated to another organization, I think last September. And Seth, I think you and I talked about it on a hike. I floated the idea, and like every person I talked about this idea to, they said it was impossible. They didn't think that everybody was going to say yes, but I somehow finessed being able to pull the leader of Decriminalized Nature, Carlos Plazola, the leader of Decriminalized California, Ryan Manubar, David Bronner, Dave Hodges. Who else? I had Mario from POC Fungi Community. Basically, I had Sabrina from SPORE. SPORE is the organization that passed in Denver. So I had every single heavy hitter that I viewed that is moving legislation forward in the same room. And if you understand the feelings that everybody has, and everybody's so passionate that there's a lot of feelings involved, like personal feelings. And so I was able to sit all these people down, have a conversation about their views and their philosophies, and specifically so that the public could understand what organizations represented what ideas. Nobody's ever sat these people down and had a debate on the issues. There's been articles written, that I'm certain have had a very heavy influence from whatever organization.
Oh, there's been a lot of articles. Yeah.
A lot of articles. This isn't one of them. I will say, I'm an advisor to Decriminalized Nature, but that did not inform the conversation. I made sure that it was informative, and I held everybody's feet to the fire.
Well, I can just appreciate that that's like your local people, I helped out with that a while back as well when we were moving it through. And so, I get like the desire to be like, yes, it's Oakland. But you gotta see what we can do. Hopefully we're doing the right thing. Yeah. But at the same time, I really respect both of you for your work ethic. And Reggie, it's really clear in this case, just your skills as a diplomat, to get all those people on the same page, because they all have their own individual stories or whatever. But I think the real thing is that everybody's triggered when their passion and the direction they're going and so sure about doesn't align with somebody else's. And everybody is really doing their best to save the world, quote unquote, save the world, or whatever their version of team, supporting Team Human is. I really believe that, having met most of these people, like they're actually genuinely doing their best. So when they don't agree, it's like, but why? It's personal, right? So yeah, I will have to tune in and check that out. I'm excited.
Yeah, another one that's shaping up to be very interesting is I'm having a conversation from leading cannabis folks, people who own businesses in cannabis, but also have been active in the equity space. Mm-hmm. We're having a conversation about equity and representation and lessons learned from cannabis. And I think this is very important because in the community, in the psychedelic community, you hear everybody talking about, we don't want to repeat what happened in cannabis. Everybody says it.
Yeah, I've said it.
Everybody says it, but what the fuck does that mean? What's it look like? And how much do you know to inform that? Mm-hmm. And so I'm bringing some people here, some veterans, some OGs, not just speculators, but people, if they had a chance to go back, and they're going to be talking about, they're going to be giving us real information about how we can make this work, or even if we can make it work.
Mm-hmm. That's awesome. Yeah, I would love to hear a little bit about, just because we're on the topic, both of you guys' thoughts on that. And I just want to say quickly, my thoughts on how do we not let this be like cannabis is the biggest thing I reflect on from the work that I do is cannabis was really a community-driven effort for a long time. And then a certain amount of money came into the space that people were like, well, I just really can't afford to be a community-oriented person when this money is staring me down. And so for Psychedelic Society, it's like we do need to be financially sustainable nonprofit so that we last, so that we stick around for those people. So that's really the kind of throes that we're in. But I would love to know, what are the things that got lost and how do we maintain in your guys' perspective?
I think some of the biggest issues that we see in the cannabis space, it has layers to it. On the higher level layer, you have the conversation between legalization, regulation versus decriminalization.
Yeah.
That's one layer of conversation. If you decriminalize something, there are larger companies that are still less likely to be inclined because while it's not a crime, it might have implications that we have, investors that say that, if you invest into this space and all of a sudden that stuff gets mushroom space and that stuff gets seized, they're less likely to move into those spaces. So that's one method one might consider to maybe keep that larger money as a buffer. It exists and it's there, but maybe there's a buffer between it. And maybe that is in the decriminalized space versus the legalized regulated space. Because in the regulations, that's where the community workers, those people are like, I'm growing for, 20 different people that I love and trust, can't do anything anymore because they're being choked out by, larger regulations. They're like, oh, well, you have a 20 plant room. You're only allowed to have 15 due to regulations and things like that. So that's one method that I think that's one layer that I think needs to be looked at.
Well, my view on the thing is simple. It's two things. Things stay decriminalized until the legislation works for the people. When I say that, I mean we're not dealing with lobbyists that craft legislation that creates barriers of entry, because that's what happened in cannabis, and that's what's trying to happen in psychedelics. That's what these companies are doing in Jamaica right now. Is they're crafting legislation that raise barriers of entry. Number one. And number two, I truly believe this. Everybody who I say this to says it's impossible. But it's not impossible. People said it was impossible for me to sit them people at that table, but I got them there.
I really believe that you're the kind of person that impossible is that maybe not relevant.
Jay-Z said difficult takes a day, impossible takes a week. But ban institutional money. Ban institutional money outright. If your money comes from Wall Street in the States, if it comes from Bay Street in Canada, if it comes from wherever it is in the UK, ban it. You cannot get into the industry outright. And then a carry off to that is you cap off how financed you can be. You maybe $1 million cap. You can't come in with any other money over $1 million, and ban it, like outright ban it. And it creates it, and that's it. Decriminalize, and if you legalize, ban institutional money.
So on one hand, we have the most marginalized communities, right? People that are going to gain the most from access to like these healing substances in a way that's not criminalized, right? And on the other hand, we have people that could give a shit about what that healing substance is. They just see the opportunity to make money. And they have their story where they tried mushrooms and that was very healing to them. And they think that's a great justification. It sounds good. Yeah. So, and it's funny because like you're talking about the structure of the American or maybe global economy right now, right? Like how do you start to come in and change these things? Obviously, we don't need to solve those problems in this conversation, but I think, I feel in my heart very similarly that, that this publicly traded money that is beholden to the, I think we've talked about this in every episode done so far, but that is beholden to those shareholders that can sue you for not taking opportunities to maximize profit. That is a very strange system that I don't think a lot of people really grasp the depth of it.
I want to piggyback, but I don't want to diverge too far off. But it's the corporations are soulless first and foremost. And I want to take this moment to really tell people that you need to pay attention to what's happening here, both domestically in the psychedelic space and internationally in the psychedelic space. I work in Jamaica. I work with Canadians. I work with Brits. I see I see a little bit further than most people get a chance to see involved with this. And what's happening is, if you thought what happened with cannabis was bad, that was just straight Wall Street money that came in. And there was some rich farmers that got a chance to ride with that. Right now, it's worse because what we're dealing with is newfound tech money, independently wealthy tech people who have the means to fly to Costa Rica or fly wherever. They have their experience, and now they want to take over. Now, everybody's in agreement that we have that Silicon Valley is rife, that the tech world is rife with problems. Number one being diversity and the people who they have access to. And if these are the people who we're going to allow to fuel the future of plant medicine, we are in trouble. All right. Do we want the future of psychedelics to look like Facebook? Do we want it to look like Instagram? Do we want it to look like Google? Because that's what it looks like when we're looking at some of these. I'm not going to say the names of these companies, but a lot of y'all follow these people. So I just say, take a look at it. Look behind the veil. Even if they have a black person out there leading the company, if they're Canadians, I guarantee you, that person is a front person or a token. So just be mindful.
Wait, is that a Canadian jab on Canadians right there?
I know all the Canadian companies.
Okay, you just know all the companies. You're like, at this time,
I know all the Canadian companies. I work past tense for a Canadian company. Yeah. I've worked for an American company with ties to British royalty. So I've seen more than most. in this space. And I'm just telling you, look to Jamaica as the canary in the coal mine, because we do not want to end up here. And that's my piece. Sorry.
Don't apologize, man. I mean, thanks. Thank you for, sharing that with me and everybody listening, because the only reason we have these conversations is to capture moments and energy and like the truth that we hold. So thank you for sharing that, man. I mean, there's nothing to apologize about.
So if I could zoom in a little bit, that was a lot of big picture, okay? There's another layer to this, which is specifically tied to what we're doing with the cup. And that is this idea of setting the standard for testing. So the issue within the cannabis industry that I, as working in it in both Colorado and here in California, see is this issue that we call lab shopping. So you can build a testing lab that meets state standards, and you can send your sample of cannabis into that lab to get it tested. Mm-hmm. And then you're going to get a label saying 15 to 18% THC on it, all these different other cannabinoids and terpenes. The issue is if you could send that same sample to a different lab and end up with different numbers on your label. That's apples to orange comparisons. Okay. And the states are struggling to be able to keep people within these margins of sameness. And that's the issue that I think that we're facing right now is if we're going to be moving into this space, we need to be doing apples to apples comparisons, which is one of the reasons why I think the science that we're putting forth is so important, because we're not trying to lock it away. We want everybody to know how it is we're doing this. We want to be able to say, you want to reproduce it? That's great. Because that's how science works. Yeah. It's a process of hypothesis. And if that hypothesis is not rejected, it's not saying no to it, it goes to the next person. Mm-hmm. And then that person has to say, oh, no, it didn't say no again. And if it keeps doing that, that's holding the test of time.
And that's real science versus okay, we're going to do our own little science in this bubble here. And, if you do your own science, fine, but you're not going to make any money off our science, right? And that's what it's about, this competition that's going on. So I love what you're saying. I think, I see the reason where it may be hard to get investors, right? You're like, okay, we're going to break the model so that nobody can, manipulate the entire scene. And I love that. And I love that that's kind of, as grassroots people, I think what we all stand for, my own identity around cultivating mushrooms, helping with the decrim stuff, empowering that mission, is that exactly. It's if we just break the model of how do you get the substance in the first place, everybody and their mother could just grow it easily. Agreed. Then we're in a better situation. It's not how do we stop Wall Street money? For me, that might be possible, but it's not that interesting.
How do we empower community?
Yeah, how do we just not even have to worry about that because people are empowered, which is a long uphill battle because it's been a long downhill one too, or maybe I shouldn't say that specifically, but I've definitely grown up with a bit of that pessimistic chip on my shoulder of damn, we're suppressed, or something like that. But it's a beautiful world at the same time. So we learn and we grow.
I agree, wholeheartedly. And that's the thing that I think that we need to be doing is, you had mentioned earlier that, these companies are beholden to their shareholders. Our shareholders are the community. Yes. They're the people asking us, growing and testing. It's those are the people we're beholden to, not some, rich group of oligarchs in New York.
And to be transparent, I am currently sitting on, I've been offered very lucrative contracts to come and sell my talent and my likeness and my energy to some of these international companies for pennies. I mean, they're lucrative for me, but in the larger scale of things, they're pennies, because I have to say anything that I produce while I'm under this contract, the cup being one of them, would have belonged to these companies. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Anything that I would have produced would have belonged to these companies. Whereas now, again, we intentionally didn't take anything, but now this Hyphae and Hyphae Labs is funded by the people who buy tests or the people who buy tickets. It's a completely community funded, and I think we're going to go far that way.
I think you will too, man. And we're in the same kind of boat with Psychedelic Society. We're making all our own money as a nonprofit, but we know who we are, and I'd rather live my life broke like that, but I don't think we'll stay broke. I think we're at the right place at the right time, and we're all going to really grow from here and support this community in a way that it doesn't know it needs yet. And there are people that know. That's why we're busy already. But I think at large, I think psychedelics, it's almost hilarious what you're saying, like how much big energy is coming at it. I have a hope. I think I'll say hope. I don't know if it's a feeling, but it's definitely a hope that like the way that they work, it kind of is it's like an inversion. It's like, okay, all of this like stuff coming at it gets reflected right back out. And then the people that are like here just to be supportive and create a structure of like mutual aid in the first place is like more valued because the nature of the medicines. And that's like that's coming from a place of faith. There's also a part of me that's like, well, if you wrap, the setting is like this capitalist dystopian future, then like, can we really hope that the mushrooms will do their work? I don't know.
I would agree with that. I mean, there's a trajectory that we're on as a culture right now. Like that if it wasn't for entheogens in general, MDMA, mushrooms, ayahuasca, changa, all of bufo, all of these different things, if it wasn't for these different new factors, our trajectory is likely going to be leading to our mutual destruction. It's what I kind of feared for the longest time. It's like, oh yeah, no, this is the end of the world. This is the end times. It's just, and then it's like, oh no, there is hope. And the hope is not in a company. The hope is not in the government. The hope is in you as an individual. That's the thing that I think is coming out of this, is this almost asking us to show up for ourselves. If we can show up for ourselves, that is showing up for each other. Like Reggie showing up and just making sure that these conversations are able to happen, made it to where now this conversation that we had brought up earlier, this decriminalization panel, that impossible thing is now possible. It's not only possible, it's real, it's tangible. People can engage with that now. Like I like to think about chairs. Somebody had to think of the first chair. Chairs didn't exist. They were just rocks that people sat on. Somebody had to come up with the idea of a chair and then put that idea into existence.
Yeah, sure.
And I think that's what this movement is showing us, is that everybody has that ability. Like if there's something inside of that person that is their passion, you can make that impossible passion real.
Yeah. There's a lot of potential in this world. For sure.
Well, I mean, and the potential's in us, I think.
Sure. Reggie, are you gonna say something?
Well, I wanted to pivot a little bit.
You wanna what?
I wanted to pivot a little bit.
I like that. Yeah, let's do it.
So this also that we're doing here is we consider this the beta version of the cup. It lands on 4/20, 4/19 is Bicycle Day, which is a day that's near and dear to a lot of people in the psychedelic movement. But also 9/20, September the 20th, is a day that's near and dear, maybe even more to a lot of people, specifically mushroom people. And so we felt like it's only right to make this a 4/20, 9/20 event, and especially if you understand the cultivation cycles of mushrooms. That's eons in terms of times that you could isolate genetic samples and run tests. And so I think that it's only appropriate to do the 4/20 and the 9/20. So we have, once this one's wrapped, this one's sold, completely sold out in terms of entries. That's closed. You can still get tickets to this one online through the Oakland Hyphae Instagram. Just check the link in the bio. But we are going to open up, we're going to start taking submissions for September and June. We're going to double the size of we had a limited amount of capacity this time. We're going to double the capacity, so we'll have even more samples. But I'm certain that that's probably going to sell out or at least fill up in a week or two. Okay. So we have that on the horizon, and we also have an Oakland Psychedelic Conference that we're talking with members of the community to pull together.
Before we go on to that, because I do want to just touch base on that, but you guys are you've been doing a lot of this testing for free.
Yeah.
Are you going to keep doing that for the next one? Or is it going to be is this one paid entry? Is that one paid entry too?
So the concept here is, I work very hard to make sure that they're cultivators. So, when I first started out, I was dead broke, and I literally would spend my last $50 to get into some of these decriminalized nature or, as a psychedelic, the meetings. You know, I'd spend the money. In hindsight, it was great money to spend. But it would have been, I would have been attended a lot more, participated a lot more, shown up a lot more if there was no cost. So the people who come to me and say cost is prohibitive, you know, just like with the tickets for the talk, you know, we've waived quite a few entry fees. But for folks that have it, they are proud to pay. You know, people are proud to fund and fuel the movement that we're doing here. And so there's a tiered system based upon the depth of report you want back and the level that you want to participate in. So the cup is paid entry. But nobody is turned away, especially if it's POC or women, which I'm very proud of the representation that we have. You know, we have some of the best women growers. We have trans growers. We have more Black growers than most people even knew existed. And of course, we have some of the best, white guys who grow. But we have some of the best. And so the other piece of this is in terms of, you know, social activism is I know for a fact that careers are going to be made off of the people that appear on this list.
Right.
No matter if you're at the top or if you're at the bottom, because right now the powers that be are out shopping. They don't know where to go. And if they find somebody who cultivates, finding somebody who cultivates is much different than finding somebody who cultivates well.
Right.
You know, so be it at the top or be it at the bottom, you're on the list. And I've seen my previous two lists manipulate prices. You know, cultivators that are on the list near the top, their prices go up. You know, and people start getting calls from companies. And so I anticipate I anticipate there being more women, people of color, queer, LGBT. I envision seeing more of them in more powerful positions as a result of just being involved in the cup and being on the list.
Yeah. Can I ask you a little bit of maybe a little trickier question?
Yeah.
And I feel like we totally edited it out. But like, you know, is there any sense of responsibility around working with these people that maybe trust you more and are maybe going to become more public about what they're doing? And obviously we can all agree there's a lot of stuff going on underground, but like, you know, these are kind of maybe people that are poking their heads up. How do you handle that? And like, how do you kind of deal with the potential, you know, risk that they're taking? Does that,
So I'm going to take this one too. Before we did this, we put months and months and months of thought into intake. You know, it was one of the prohibitive things that kept us from like just pulling the trigger. Was intake. And so our intake process, first of all, everybody's grown and everybody's an adult, so we make adult decisions.
Sure.
But in the intake process, we ask people how they want to be identified publicly. You know, if you enter the cup, you will have your information put out there, but we can put it out there under whatever name you choose. Sure. That's number one. Then for two, beyond the cup, you know, in terms of testing as a service, that's as confidential as the person wants it to be. You know, that's a service that, you know, it's between me and you, you know, and but I'll leave it there.
Okay, perfect. Yeah, thanks. I think that's kind of some important detail as we are emerging, right? You know, it's like, in what directions are we pioneering? We want to definitely be good shepherds, right? And help people, I don't know, always kind of lean towards safety a little bit, but with you're totally right. There's this other incentive that don't necessarily be safe, but like get yourself out there because it's coming. The wave is here, you know, ride the wave. And so it's like, there's kind of these competing interests, but because we're in that moment now where the energy is really up, it's like, you gotta ask yourself, where are you gonna?
I think that these are grown-ups, and
sure.
And if the attention wasn't wanted, then people would not, you know, submit or participate. But one way or another, this was going to happen.
Yeah,
you know, this was going to happen. I've heard in the street already some folks trying to take the idea and hijack the idea. At this point, the community is so deeply behind this that it's impossible. But better us, some folks that you can bump into the street, some folks who understand what it's like to miss a meal, some folks who did understand what it's like to deal with various sorts of hardships, and some folks that actually care about making sure that money is cycled throughout people like us, then, you know, the people who live, you know, in the burbs, who don't know what struggle is like at all, or at least their struggles are totally different. They might not be able to upgrade their Tesla this year.
Mm-hmm.
It's who have no desire to engage in community as anything beyond a performative act. Like, better us doing it than them.
Yeah, this is a really interesting point, because I don't think we want to engage ourselves like in classism necessarily, but at the same time, we can recognize that we are engaged in classism, whether we want to be or not. Like, there is a sense that, there's systems at play that we are all a part of, right? Well, I had the opportunity to go to college, which is pretty cool. And the same system that kind of pressured me into doing that, is pretty manipulative in the sense that, okay, I wouldn't really know what I was getting myself into. I was pretty dumb getting out of college, and now I'm going to have loans for quite some time to, be in that. And that's obviously still on the more privileged end of problems to have, So it's like, when people, like you're saying, don't know if they can upgrade their Tesla this year, they feel supported by the friends or family or, bank account that they have, or the structure of their corporate thing, whatever it is. I'm not trying to judge those things, but it's just, I think, important that we all remember how big the spectrum of the human experience is, and like really how much challenge there is for, I'd say, what seems to be the vast majority of people these days. And a lot of it is the silent majority. It's not those voices that you're hearing. So I just really appreciate you speaking to that. Thank you.
And I would actually try to pick up on the point that you had touched on briefly, the idea that there are systems in place that we're already a part of, whether we like it or not. I've been using this language, which can be maybe a little abrasive, but I appreciate the pushback on it. This idea that there are, for better or worse, cults that we're indoctrinated into from birth.
Yeah, sure.
And again, it's an incisive word, but it's meant to grab people's ear.
Right.
So, like, one of my favorite songs from the 90s, the seminal rock anthem, Cult of Personality by In Living Color.
Yeah.
That song is one of the best descriptors of kind of the mentality of one of the cults that we're a part of. This idea that a professor, like talking about the college example, that stands up the front of his class, says something, and is corrected by a student and can't handle that.
Mm-hmm.
That's ego. That's a cult of personality that's within their head that won't let them acknowledge being wrong. I think there are these different parts of our culture that we don't have conversations about. Like this cult of personality. How deep in our own stuff are we that we can't acknowledge that there might be an answer outside of this thing that is better for the general public and maybe even for us. And this idea is we need to have those conversations. Like, have you been humbled before? And trust me when I say mushrooms will teach you humility. Like, talking about Dave, gentlemen that can go deep into this space. Baba Kalindi, who's passed in the past year. People that would pioneer 30-gram mushroom doses. You want to be humbled. Like, that's the path. That's the humble path. I'm not saying it's for everybody.
Yeah. I wouldn't say it's necessarily, you know what I mean? There's sides to it, right?
Yep.
But yeah, I hear what you're saying.
Yeah, I just want to have hard conversations about these things that we're indoctrinated into. And some people need that 30-gram dose to get to that conversation. Some people can get to it without those things. But regardless, those conversations need to happen. How deep in are we to these cultures that we don't necessarily agree to anymore?
Well, yeah, I mean, I think Terence McKenna is famous for saying culture is not your friend, right?
Mm-hmm.
And there's a lot of truth to that, but also it's like the operating system is the thing that gave me any sense of direction at all. And it's helped me not live my life, totally unguided. But of course, it's like guided me towards its own means. But what I want to ask, like, kind of bring it back in, pivot a little bit again, is like, what is the culture that we create that helps to overcome these things? And how is the Oakland Psychedelic Conference going to be a part of that? Hard questions. I know.
Repeat it again. How?
So, like, answer this however you want. Just trying to be a little creative. How is it that, these different cults of personality happen? And, I think we're all on the same page about certain things in terms of what the work that we're doing is when it comes to community and psychedelics and where they meet. And I know that you're working on, maybe, are you guys working on this together? Or is this more Reggie? You're working on
this together.
Okay, Oakland Psychedelic Conference. And, I'm sure that's like when you do these big events, you're kind of embedding your own beliefs into it. You're embedding your own desires and changes you want to see. So how does that, how can we, let's talk about the Oakland Psychedelic Conference.
How does that translate into the Oakland Psychedelic Conference?
What's your intentions with this? How do you want to impact?
So first off, it's inspired by the Detroit Psychedelic Conference.
Okay.
I went out to Detroit, I believe it was in August or July, and they decided to hold it in the dead middle of the pandemic in person. But we went, everybody was in there. The majority of people did not have on masks. You could probably look at my IG, but beyond that,
seems like a questionable decision.
Yeah, it was questionable, but nobody got COVID when we came back, and
can I tell you something that's like crazy to me about that is that that happened just a little bit after Kalindi passed away from COVID.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. How is that conscionable to have that happen and then host this event that was like to some degree almost in his name, it felt like from a distance, and then to have no real regard for the COVID situation?
Well,
does that add up for you at all?
So the way that I see it, the Detroit Psychedelic Conference was something that was near and dear to Baba Kalindi's heart. Yeah, we can start there. He pioneered that space because the people who he could relate to and the people who he was teaching, and they weren't represented at like the breaking conventions, and they just weren't represented. Yeah. So he pioneered his own. He built his own table, and he passed away not only from COVID but working on the conference. His wife, Mama Ayana, decided that she wanted to honor him that way, and the people who followed Baba Kalindi decided that they wanted to do the same thing. So for a lot of people, it was bigger than COVID or going or spreading. Quite frankly, a lot of people didn't believe in it, and that's their prerogative. I knew the risk that I was taking, and I chose to do everything I did. I got tested before I went. Mm-hmm. Got tested when I came back, as did everybody from the California delegation.
Thanks, man.
But we didn't get sick. Nobody did. And so we were adults. We made an adult decision, mm-hmm. and we felt like we were honoring Baba. And quite frankly, there's a lot of seeds that grew, a lot of spores that came from that, mm-hmm. which brings us back to here. Right. So had I not gone to that, we would not be talking about doing an Oakland Psychedelic. I would not be talking about engaging in it at all, because I wouldn't have gotten a chance to see it or meet the people. We left there with all sorts of relationships and connections. And so for me, I want to see Oakland as the mecca of mushrooms. I want it to be the same if people think Mendocino or Humboldt. Like, I want you to think mushrooms when you come to Oakland. And it's decriminalized here. We have a supportive government here. We have an abundance of knowledge here. We got Stamets, we got Rockefeller, we got all these people right here.
It's amazing.
Mm-hmm. And it would be a shame not to bring these people together. And so again, our unique position is having access to all the Stametses and access to the Rockefellers and access to the SFPSs.
Rockefeller is not the people who live in New York, like the
Alan Rockefeller, not the Rockefeller.
Yeah, there's like shitting on class,
But if anybody's listening to this podcast, they already know.
Well, probably, actually, they don't, man.
Alan Rockefeller.
Yeah, I mean, that's like a mycology specific thing. It's a psychedelic, community thing.
Alan Rockefeller is a well-established scientist. I would argue citizen scientist.
Oh, 1,000%. He's never worked. I don't think he's ever worked for like an institution before.
So, but being in the Bay, having access to all these people like yourself and like Hate Street Shroom Shop, but also being able to connect with people, that aren't necessarily at the meetings or can make the meetings, but I still, practice yoga with some of these people in the East. We might go to Sankofa Market. And so being able to marry, I think the answer to your question is for one, the culture is going to hold me accountable. You know, you can see me out, and if people don't like the way I'm moving, they tell me. And so, you know, the community being the regulator, we're able to the idea is to pull the entire plant medicine community together around 920. You know, everybody, all of its facets. And celebrate what the day has. Like there's nothing like that. You know, there's nothing like that yet. And so we're into pioneering. We're into doing what people haven't done. And what I've seen, and this is the last piece, but what I've seen in the psychedelic space, specifically in the business space, is there's a lot more people who are lurking in the waters to steal ideas and to imitate ideas, and that's a space that I don't want to be in. You know, it's, you know, fighting for crumbs. Right. But when we're talking about we live in the world of mind expansion, and so it just seems easier to create things that serve the people.
Totally. Yeah, I'm in a market growth mindset. You know what I mean? That's like in economics terms, like market growth versus market control. You know, do you want to try to control something, or do you want to try to grow something? And I just really want to grow more. You know, there's an abundance. Yeah, I completely agree with that. And another thing I heard this recently that stuck with me is like, if you're competing, you're losing. You know what I mean? Like, I don't know if you ever heard that, but it's just like, if you're not focused on yourself and your project and the work you want to be doing most or all the time, and you're just focused on what other people are doing around you, it's like you're already losing.
That's a big fact.
You know, they're already taking it away from you, you know? So I think that's cool just to think about. It's like, it doesn't really matter what other people are doing. If you're doing the best thing you can, that's going to lead, you're either going to succeed with that or it's going to lead to the next thing.
Yeah, on the same note, like I've always had the idea that if my success is dependent upon another group's failure, that's not success.
Right.
Like my success should be dependent upon my success. Like if I show up for myself, like I said earlier, if I show up for myself, that is me showing up for everybody else. If I'm showing up and be like, okay, I'm only going to give 50% because I know if I trip up this other person, my 50% is good enough. Like that's destructive. Like that's something I don't want to be a part of. That's that almost, that's that market control kind of mentality. I've been saying this to different people. It's nobody teaches you how to run a good business. Because there's a lot of bad businesses out there that if somebody taught you how to run a good one, they'd be out of jobs. So it's self-defeating in this competition mentality to train the next generation that's better than you. Unlike science, and what I believe what we're doing here very strongly is we're standing on the shoulders of giants, and we're not ignoring those giants. We're saying that and recognizing the fact that our shoulders are going to need to be stood on later by the next generation. But we need to not just prepare and educate, but we need to provide the field for them to grow.
Yeah, I love that. And, you know, that the size of that field, I want to get back to one of the things that was just coming up too, is like about the people that were at the Detroit Psychedelic Conference. It was all, you know, maybe it's not just all the people, but it's a lot of these people that wouldn't otherwise have that stage, have that place to speak. And that's interesting, right? Like that's like, how wide is this field? How many people are here? And I hope that this podcast, you know, we're just getting started with some of our friends and family, but like I really want to extend to all of the perspectives, you know, because that's where I think that's even for me, what's so captivating about this field is how rich it is, you know, how diverse it is, how people are coming from every angle, you know, and that's really cool. I like that.
To your point, we've already established it. I was very present in the Oakland decriminalized scene or psychedelic scene. If there was a meeting, I tried to show up. You know, I tried to build with people. The Detroit Psychedelic Conference was the first time where I was now acutely aware that my race was different than everybody else in the room. And it's also the first time where I became acutely aware of the people who I was meeting weren't. And this is no shade to anybody, but the people who I was meeting weren't like running the gears through their head as somehow I can plug into their organization and be the token, you know, Black person, you know, because everybody there was Black and we just wanted to connect and we did.
Yeah.
You know, and we did. And it wasn't I called it the Black Psychedelic Conference. They didn't call it that, but that's what it was. Paul Stamets was involved in that, and a lot of other people. Like, it was a wide range of folks who came, but they did it like Detroit. Detroit's a black city. It was a space.
I think that's really cool, and it's an interesting problem. I don't know if "problem" is the right word, but we kind of see it like that, and it's funny because I think that's where those people are approaching you. Oh, we want you to be our organization because we have this problem where we're like very white. We're kind of in our own bubble, and we were never given the tools or exactly taught the best way to get out of that bubble. In fact, it's just been really reinforced in our lives that we stay in the bubble, and there's like this desire to have a broader perspective or to have more inclusion, but a awkwardness about how to get there. And I can only imagine how relieving that is. And it's a totally different thing, but maybe a couple of degrees of, similar feeling was like I went and filmed Moodoo from the EE network at Soul Tree like a few weeks ago. I was the only white guy there. And that was, I almost wanted to cry just about how important that felt to me, there was just like a real warmth to it to be like, I'm like an outsider here, and I'm not, I'm also not, I know the guys on stage. So
you used to live right there.
Yeah, so it was I'm not at all, but it was just that's why I say it's not really the same thing, but it was stone's throw from,
it's heartwarming. Yeah.
It's heartwarming. It's really cool to see that, and I think it's a little bit different. I think the angle's different, but I was stoked about to see how many people were showing up for that. And also, a girl said to me, she's asking me questions about Psychedelic Society. I was like, oh, there is a BIPOC group, and to her, she was her eyes really lit up because, I knew that it's important that we have these individual spaces for people that, want to feel in their community still, feel safe in that space, find that affinity. But she's the way she said it, she's I just really have trouble trusting white people, and it's that makes sense. Yeah, me too. I get it. Yeah,
I waited tables for a long time when I was both in college and after college. And one of the most important lessons that I learned was, generally speaking, people suck. But individuals on an individual basis, getting to know a person, not as an idea of who that person is, but as that person is, you can really appreciate individuals. And so as soon as we stop moving away from this forest and start looking at the trees, that's when we can really start to have these beautiful conversations. Because again, we're talking about shareholders and companies. That's all forest talk. We're not talking about the individuals in those spaces. And I think that's the thing that makes a community. It's not, this is all a BIPOC group. It's yes, that's a community, but it's full of individuals, and those individuals in that space have their own unique stories and are there for that reason. And it's undeniable. And to just label it as, oh, it is this, it's that's disingenuous. And that's the process of othering. And it's no, we're, like you had said earlier, we're team human, it's we're team Gaia. This is a thin biofilm on this planet is all that we are. Humanity, plants, trees, algae, fungi, toads, the whole 9 yards. We're just a thin biofilm on this planet.
Yeah, it really is a very sacred, sacred in the sense that it's scarce, it's very scarce in a sense. But yeah, I just want to say I really am stoked to be talking to you guys and for the work that y'all are doing because, there aren't a lot of people that are as passionate about it. I feel the fire, in myself and from you guys. And I really think that y'all are uniquely capable of accomplishing what others might consider impossible tasks. And I just want to stay in touch, not so we can tokenize you, Reggie, but just so that we can amplify each other's messages,
So to that point, I've never felt tokenized by you. I have felt highly supported. I mean, you've never hounded me to say, hey, come be part of SFPS. Hey, come do this. And one time you offered me a spot in the microdosing, and it wasn't a hard sell. You had to get it to that. It was if you want to do this, but it's mainly been, let's hang out, let's hike. How can I support what you're doing? It's a big difference between, right now I'm on right now, my face and images on the website of people who I haven't done business with in a year, and we left on bad terms. But they need my face on their website to make it look away.
Yeah.
You know, and so it's there's a difference. You feel me?
I'm feeling you. By the way, we have some advisory seats open on our website. Unless you want to be on there.
I'm just playing unless you want to.
But really, guys, is there anything else you want to chat about before we wrap this up?
So coming off of the cup, we're going to pivot directly into testing for the public.
Okay.
And so we'll be doing that through Hyphae Labs. So just keep an eye out for that. If you're interested in potency testing, for right now, you can reach out to Oakland Hyphae
On Instagram.
on IG.
How do you spell it?
OAKLAND_HYPHAE, Oakland Hyphae. You could go there and hit me and contact me directly, and I will direct you to the proper protocol to get tested. But that's, I mean, the business aspect, know that there's going to be a lot of people coming down the pike trying to imitate here soon, and that's cool. But when you support what we're doing, we are paying a lot of POCs. We are paying a lot of women. You know, us too, right here. We do the science, but there's a lot of people in ancillary positions, and we try our best to make sure that we feed the street, so to speak.
It's a powerful message. So yeah, I just want to make sure that it's really easy for people to find you guys, because I think it's really important. So any websites, emails, anything that we need to know? Your IG.
You can find my IG, Psychonaut. That's EYEPSYCHONAUT. But if you really want to find out more about me and the work that I'm doing, I do have a podcast and blog, Understanding Entheogens.
Cool.
You can find that on Spotify and Apple, I believe, as well as my blog on my website, critical.consulting.
.com?
Nope, just critical.consulting.
That's easy.
Yeah.
It's going to be confusing to the old timers, but
Trust me, I've had a couple of people be like, that's not valid. I was like, just type it.
Yeah.
And, you know, Oakland Hyphae. We have Oakland Hyphae 510 online. So OAKLAND, Oakland like the city, Hyphae like the hyphae, not hyphae, HYPHAE. OaklandHyphae510.com and Oakland Hyphae on IG.
Right on. I just want to end this on a tangent about Hyphae. Yeah, please.
Real quick, before you end your tangent,
come on.
we need you, if you want to support what we're doing and support our work, and you like what you hear, you can go to Oakland Hyphae IG, Instagram. In the bio, there's a link that you can click that will allow you to buy a ticket to the Psilocybin Cup, to the talkers. We're going to have everything from, you know, cannabis experts talking about lessons learned to, you know, the big panel with all the major players. It took a lot of energy. It took a lot of finances to make this happen. And so there's a $39 ticket tier. If you want to support, you can purchase that. There's a $98 ticket tier. If you really want to support, you can purchase that. And if you're just interested and you don't have it, you can do the free option. We're not going to turn anybody away, but we will stop the free option a few days before the cup. We're looking at stopping it on the 15th. So if you want to do the free option, you need to sign up ASAP.
I love it, man. Yeah, that's great. And is the free option actually the whole event?
Yeah, we're not holding anything back. The free option is going to get the same thing as the people who pay. Mm-hmm. The only thing that we're going to say is get signed up before the 15th. After that, we're taking the free option down, and you will have to pay to access it after the 15th.
Can you access it after the fact too? After the whole conference is over, can you buy a ticket after the fact?
What I would say is buy a ticket right now.
That's the easiest. Yeah, cool. And I'm happy to chat with you guys about like how to put things online or whatever because we've done some of that with the Psychedelic Society. So I know a couple things.
Oh yeah, this is Mr. Selling been out. Seth, it was I'd show up. So Seth would get frustrated with me because I never make plans. If you ever work with me, making plans is like pulling teeth.
I can't believe we're even here right now.
I think it was 15 minutes before the actual deadline that we decided it was happening.
Seth, I would show up to his events, and he would always want to let me in, but he's like, "Dog, you didn't tell me," and blah blah blah. We're packed.
Already 10 people over the limit.
Seth, saying all that to say that Seth knows how to sell an event out for sure. So I will be.
Well, I'm lucky. I'm part of a rich team of people, so I mean, I can't take all the credit. I have some good ideas here and there.
Yeah.
I really appreciate it, man. And it's just been so fun on this journey. My tangent makes less sense now. But so the term hyphae, you know what I mean? Because the hyphae movement is like Oakland specific.
Yeah,
so does that kind of play into the name Oakland Hyphae?
Of course. Everything that you can't listen. This company and what we're doing here is not the regular run of the mill. We're not we're not going to do the one spacey word company, or the blah 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 flow or blah, we're not doing that. It's I love rap music. I love Black people. I love the culture, and here in the Bay there is a very strong movement amongst people, but specifically, hip hop culture called the Hyphae movement, spelled a little bit differently. But as I started to come along in my mycological research and journeys, I found a word that struck home with me, and the word itself is very meaningful in terms of what we're trying to do. At a base level, we start off at a very basic level. And then we grow and we connect. And when we connect to other people, we grow even stronger. And basically, Hyphae is half a DNA set of what will then develop into mycelium.
Right on. Well, the other part of this, right, is like you take that. So I was imagining a T-shirt. It says like "Get Hyphae" on the top, right? And it's like Hyphae, like mycelium, and then at the bottom it says like with Psilocybin DJ Amor. So it's like that's the pink oyster mushroom. It's like spelled Jamor, like DJ-A-M-O-R, but Amor is like Spanish for love. And so in between Get Hyphae and with Psilocybin DJ Amor, like Psilocybin is like little letters. You have like this fucking sexy like pink oyster lady,
like DJing on the turntable,
blasting out like mycelium out of the speakers. So if we want to work on a collab,
I like that idea. It's corny enough to be a hit.
Right. Yeah. It's like who's wearing full graphic tees? It's not a lot of people bring it up.
They wouldn't even understand that.
Yeah. Right. That's a real niche crowd.
But that's the space where the opportunity lives. By diving into the niche and exploring that instead of trying to elbow it out for the crumbs.
Hyphae itself, Oakland Hyphae itself doesn't restrict it to one kind of mushroom. Oakland Hyphae is also about pink oysters. Oakland Hyphae is also about chaga, reishi, all of lion's mane, having the ability, just like the Haitian shroom shop is, like cultivating a relationship. I think this is a statement I've taken from you. Cultivating a relationship with sacred mushrooms. It's one of those.
It's a pretty good tagline.
Yeah, it's really powerful. Yes, and that's what I like, and that's what I think inspires us. Like, friends support friends. If I'm not inspired to be my best self by you, and I'm not inspiring you to be your best self, we got to figure out how we're doing this friendship thing. This is how we need to do it. And I really appreciate the fact that this is what we're seeing and experiencing firsthand without even having to talk about it.
Right. Well, you guys, it's been really a lot of fun today. I just want to say thank you for keeping it connected. Glad to be friends.
So hold on, we're talking about the COVID shit. We're saying how responsible do you feel right now?